April 20th, 1945. So our last chapter was in February. It's about 2 months since our last chapter. Here we go. Do you hear that? I asked Tommy and Kinkina. It's a train, isn't it? He says. We are at the bakery not too far from where the tracks entered Terrazin, almost done loading up our wagon for another delivery. Rudy, the boy Kinkina usually delivers with, is sick, so the three of us are working together today. I look around to make sure none of our Danish bosses is looking. They must be on a break somewhere, so I run out. Tommy and Kinkina follow me. Yep, it's definitely a train, which isn't the most unusual thing since there's been a slow trickle coming in all this year. But almost all of those trains have been pretty short, usually with fewer than 100 people in them. Jews who are married to non-Jews, or those people's children, or something like that. That's who's still being brought here. On short trains filled with just a few dozen Jews or half Jews who are who were for some reason protected until the Nazis decided they weren't going to be protected anymore. But this doesn't look like one of those trains because this one is at least a dozen cars long. As we get closer, I realize that all the cars are open, like the kind you'd use for lumber or coal, but there are people in them anyway, bald people. We run alongside the train while it slows down because it's moving. I'm having trouble figuring out what it is I'm seeing. Everyone is definitely bald, which is weird enough by itself, but there's something else about them. Something that's making me wish those Danish bakers had caught us when we decided to run off. Tommy and Kinkina are seeing it too, because neither one is moving anymore. The train is still crawling ahead, but the two of them are standing motionless, their mouths hanging open, their eyes slowly following all the heads. Meanwhile, other people are running up to the train, which finally creaks to a stop. I notice a woman I've seen before. I think she works in the Dresden barracks kitchen. Yes, it's her, the nicest woman in all of Terrazin. Somehow, she's always smiling and telling everyone to have a nice day, almost like she doesn't realize where we are. But right now, she's not smiling. She's got her hand up to her mouth. Then the other one follows, and her eyes close. A few seconds later, they open, and then, just like that, she faints. Tommy's holding my sleeve. Come on, he says. Okay, I say, but my feet won't move. And where did Kinkina go? We're maybe only 20 feet from one of the cars, but my body won't let me move any closer. A couple of passengers have gotten off on their own, and I'm trying not to see them. They're two men, at least I think they're men, but they don't really look like people. Both of them are wearing uniforms, white with blue stripes, though they're so filthy I'm not sure about the white part. And one of them is only wearing pants. I get a good look at his chest, but it doesn't look like a real chest. There just isn't enough of it, at least not for the size of that bald head attached to it. He's walking towards us, and I keep expecting him to snap in half every time he takes a step. He's a skeleton, wrapped in skin. I'm trying to turn away, but he sees me looking at him. Plus, he's only about 10 feet from us now. His cheekbones push much too far outside of his face, and one of his eyes is swollen shut. I can hear him breathing, or maybe that's moaning. 3 feet away from me, he stops. His mouth opens, showing me a half a dozen rotting teeth. That's it. The rest is just blackness and gums. For a few seconds, he stands there, like a person or a skeleton, getting ready to say something. I feel my mouth opening like his, but I have no idea what to say. Finally, I hear a sound come out of his. Water. I can't tell if it's a question or a statement. Water. Tommy and I race back to the bakery, no one saying a word. As soon as we get inside, I look around for a cup or a mug or a bottle, but I can't find anything. How about this? Tommy asks. He's holding a kind of pot Mother used to make soup in. Yeah, okay, I say. We're filling it up in the sink when one of the main bakers, Mr. Haber, walks in. What is this? He asks, already angry. But we don't stop. Once we're done, we turn off the water and start running out. There's a train, I say. Just arrived. It's really. Go look. We run back to the train, each of us with a hand on the heavy pot. The water sloshes around, and some of it spills over the rim, so we have to slow down to a quick walk. which unfortunately gives me much too clear of a view of the whole train and everything around it. There are people everywhere, people from Terrazin and people from the train, people on stretchers and people lying in the grass. And even though we're half of the length of a soccer field away, I can tell that the man who asked for water isn't that different from the rest of them. They're all skeletons, every last one of them. Where'd he go? Tommy asked me. How should I know? We're standing where I think we were standing before, but the man with the swollen eye is nowhere to be found. I don't think I see the other one either. But then three smaller people, a little bigger than me, notice the pot of water and hurry to us. One slips and falls silently to the ground. The other don't seem to notice. In fact, they don't even seem to notice me and Tommy, just the pot. They grab it from us and it almost tips over, but luckily Tommy and I are strong enough to take it back from them. Hold on, I say, we'll pour it. And just like that, like they've done this before or something, they kneel down. One of them has no pants on at all. He's naked down there, and his thighs sort of look like old rubber bands. He opens his mouth and closes his eyes. While Tommy and I raise the pot and slowly tip it over, I notice a couple of small oval bugs clinging to the edge of the man's eyelids. We do this a bunch of times, running from the train to the bakery and back again, delivering water. It's a stupid system since a bunch of the water always winds up on the ground, but at least it gives us an excuse to escape every few minutes. I keep telling myself whenever we get back to the bakery that since I already know what they look like, it doesn't make any sense to be surprised each time we return. But it doesn't help because I am, especially by their skin, which is the worst part. They're covered in sores, with bugs, with bright red cuts, with infections spitting out pus. And there's something about their bald heads and their weird eyes because I can barely tell who's a man and who's a woman and who's a teenager and who's an adult. So it's good to run off every few minutes. And I bet Tommy feels the same, even though neither of us have really said much since this all started. Also, the smell. It's starting to get stuck in my nose. It took me a while to figure out what it reminded me of. Then, all of a sudden, I remembered. The summer our refrigerator broke. These people, they stink like rotting meat. Around the 10th time we come back with water, I notice that some of the people getting taken off in stretchers are winding up in a pile at the far end of the train, the kind of pile you would never put a living person in. We empty the pot and are about to go back to the bakery when I think I hear someone behind me say my name. So I turn around, some small person, another skeleton, looking right at me. Misha? Almost like a question. Uh-huh, I say, try not to stare at the red spots all over this person. Misha, and a bony hand reaches up to the scalp, so I try to look at the elbow instead, but it's much too pointy. Yeah, I say, and force myself to look at this person's eyes. I still can't figure out if it's a boy or a girl, but I'm pretty sure it's not an adult. The eyes are moving in weird ways, like the person doesn't know how to focus anymore. Inka, the person says weakly. I'm Inka. For some reason, I turn to Tommy, like maybe he can help. I'm Inka. I look at the grass for a moment and say the name to myself. Inka? A tremor rushes down the side of my body. I look at her. I think she's trying to smile, but only half of her face seems like it's working. Just then, Kinkino walks up, a smaller pot in his hand. Hey, he says to me. I groan something. I don't think we should keep bringing them water. These people, they need food. But I don't answer him. I'm staring at Inka, trying to find Inka. How much bread is in the bakery, Misha? Wait, what if they can't chew? What do you think? I can't find her. Come on, Misha. What should we do? It's Inka, I finally tell him, my voice cracking. Remember? She presses her lips together and some blood escapes from the long cracks at the top one. Inka with the beautiful red hair. Beautiful Inka, remember? Mr. Ertz is waiting for us back at the bakery. What are you doing? He says to us angrily in a weird Danish, Czech, German he speaks. Take bag, go down in Hamburg barracks, in Keller. Down in the basement, potatoes, bring many potatoes. Potatoes? Tommy asked. Now, yes, go. Takes us a while, but eventually we find a dank storage room filled with giant bins of potatoes. Some are rotting, but most of them seem okay. So we each put about 40 in a burlap sacks that we brought with us and rush them back to the bakery. When we get there, we find another 5 people already at work. One of them is Mr. Wolf, the head baker. The rest, I don't know. Knives, go, Wolf says to the three of us to peel now. We start peeling. Then Wolf gives me a flat metal thing with holes in it. You. And he takes the potato and runs it back and forth over the metal thing. Thin strips of potato come out of the bottom. You want me to grate them, I say? Yes, grate, he says. And then he points to a huge pot of water sitting on top of the gas flame. Into there, yes? For the next hour, we peel, grate, boil, and mash the potatoes. When we run out of potatoes, we grab the sacks. We finish mashing. We grab the sacks, go back to the Hamburg barracks, and get more. After we finish mashing the potatoes and adding a little flour, Wolf and Hertz take a metal tray, scoop out a bunch of the mash, and it makes flat layers of stuff across the whole tray. Then he sticks it into the oven. Baking potatoes? Kinkina asks. Why not just give them bread? Too hard, Mr. Hertz says, pointing to his mouth. They, no tender, no teeth. Right, no teeth. He shakes his head and mumbles to himself. No teeth. The first few batches are done. The three of us place the tray on our wagon and cover those with sacks and head out. Wait, Mr. Ert says. He hands Kinkina a long knife. Cut so same size. Same. Careful, very careful. All right, pause here. Your first question is going to be about what they are serving them. Why didn't they serve them bread? Why are they mashing potatoes and baking it? We push the wagon out into the ghetto, realizing we don't know where we're going. Then Tommy says, over there. On the grass that leads up to the bashta, we see a bunch of them, around 30 or so. We roll the wagon over to them. I try not to look at them because his whole body is twitching like it's 10 degrees below zero. Now what? Tommy whispers. We have potatoes, I announce. A few of them don't seem to hear, but most spring to attention, and about half actually stand up and hurry towards us. They're all talking, many of them in languages I don't understand, pushing one another, the crowd around the wagon, almost knocking the whole thing to the ground. Get back, Kinkina shouts, and actually raises the knife. A few fall back, while one very tall man actually raises his fist, which shakes so badly I reach up to make it stop. Sit, Kinkina says. Everybody gets. But almost no one sits. Kinkina starts cutting. Misha, he whispers, tell me if they're not the same size. I don't want them to attack each other, or us, for getting smaller pieces. So Kinkina cuts while Tommy and I hand out pieces. Most people don't move once they get their piece. They just stand or sit right where they get it, chewing quickly, or very, very slowly. A number of them make a weird sound, something between a moan and a groan. Once everyone has a piece, we push the wagon off towards another group of gathered in the grass, about 200 feet away. But then I notice Tommy isn't with us. I turn back and see him with the first group. He's on the ground next to what I think is a woman. She's lying on her side, her bald head half buried in the grass. Tommy's holding her piece, breaking it into smaller portions, and gently placing one of them into her mouth every 10 seconds or so. On our next delivery, I see Marietta off in the distance, running from group to group. As she gets closer to us, I can tell she's upset. Her face is red and her arms are moving about frantically. I leave Tommy and Kinkina to race over to her. Marietta? She notices me but turns away. Marietta. And I know it's a stupid question right at the moment. I ask it, but I ask anyway. What's wrong? Gustav, she says. No one knows anything about him except this one man, and he probably, but she doesn't say any more. Just covers her face in her hands and crumbles to the ground crying. All right, pause here. Let's inference. What do you guys think happened to Gustav? Reread that. That's the end of that chapter. Go ahead and take your notes in your novel study notebook.